Okay, so there was one comment on my last video that asked me, how do I foster the desire to learn English? So I thought might be very interesting to discuss about that in this video. So my easiest go-to answer that I always give to people is that you need to find something that you like in English and consume it all the time. But it actually is not very easy in real life, right? Sometimes just finding something that you like and you consume it all the time, that's not always enough. Sometimes just wanting for something to happen is not enough. Sometimes the best way for you to actually learn it is to need it. Imagine there are two people. Person A thinks, my life would be a lot better if I could speak English. Person B says, I could lose my job if I don't learn how to speak English. So between these two people, who do you think are most likely to actually learn to speak English? That's right, B is more likely to learn to speak English. Why? Because B has got something to lose. People normally have this tendency to only take actions when they know they're about to lose something, instead of taking actions to better their life. Let's say real life example. Let's say you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and they are showing you that they're kind of bored in the relationship and they're thinking of ending the relationship with you. So what do you do as someone who loves this person? You're going to do anything you can in your power to prevent them from leaving. You want them to stay in your life. So what do? Probably you will be sending them a lot of flowers, or you're going to be a lot more attentive than usual, or you're going to make them happy. Whatever you do, you want to show them that you're the best boyfriend or girlfriend so that he or she stays. But if, let's say, your relationship is fine, your boyfriend or girlfriend doesn't complain, your relationship is not great, but it's also not too bad, how likely it is for you to actually take actions to make the relationship better? How likely it is for you to think to yourself, you know what, I'm gonna give my girlfriend flowers. You know what, I'm gonna cook for my boyfriend. You know what, I'm gonna give them a surprise. It's probably not very likely because you don't really have the incentive to make something better. Because you're pretty good where you're at, you're content, you're not exactly too happy, you're not exactly too sad, you're just okay. So you don't really feel the need to make it better. So the point is, you are more likely to take actions when you have something to lose. So the question is, how can you be more like person B instead of person A? How can you actually make not being fluent in English a real problem in your life? How do you stop yourself from thinking, it would be nice to speak English, to I have to speak English, otherwise my life would fall apart? How do you do that? So first thing you gotta do is you gotta change your environment. You need a trigger. So one trigger that always works with me is to set a deadline and actually respect the deadline, because just setting a deadline and just kind of like ignoring it in the background, that doesn't work. Okay, so this is the most low cost thing that you can do to set a trigger. So what is one thing that you will lose if you do not set a deadline? Time. A deadline pushes you to take action so you do not lose time. A lot of us are actually driven by deadlines, right? If I have a deadline to do a video every Friday, I am definitely going to take actions closer to the date. If I don't really have a set time, a deadline to make videos, most likely I probably would always just drag it on and procrastinate, So a deadline and actually sticking to it will do wonders for you. And deadline will also prevent you from losing time. Instead of letting your project go endlessly and then you would lose 2-3 months to finish, let's say, a project or whatever, with a deadline, that can shorten the amount and thus prevents you from losing time. The thing is, we all know how it turns out for a lot of people, right? So for setting deadlines is normally something that you do in the beginning of the year, right? By the end of 2022, I'm gonna be able to speak English with native speakers confidently, let's say. But the reality is that we all know how that all turns out. Sometimes, the end of the year in December comes and you still haven't really reached your goal yet. So a lot of people fail to respect their deadlines because a lot of people don't really value their time, or they just don't prioritize this thing enough. So the next step that you can do is schedule an IELTS or TOEFL exam in a few months' time. So unlike the first point, where you just set a deadline by yourself and you hold yourself accountable, by scheduling an IELTS or TOEFL or any English exam that you can think of will actually give you real deadline. So right now is May. Let's say you schedule an IELTS or TOEFL exam in like 3 months or something, in August. Then you're gonna think, okay, I have 3 months to actually get serious about English. So you are driven by this deadline, right? So people may not value time as much, but they do value money. And for this, you have paid for the exam. You are financially invested in it, and that means you have skin in the game. So if you actually have a time set and you're financially invested in it, you're more likely to actually do something about it than if you were to just set a deadline by yourself. Number 3 is to just change your environment. So this could mean finding new people to hang out with, or if you're in university, to participate in clubs where you're actually required to speak English, or if you're at work, you might actually want to look for a new workplace where English is expected. So this might be easier in theory, but a little harder in practice. But think about it. If you are working at a company where everything is in Bahasa Indonesia and there's not really any potential for you to speak English in the future, what's the incentive? So for those of you guys who are working at a company where there is a potential for you to go overseas, or there are branches outside of the country, then there's potential for you to speak English. So you might want to strive to fight for that position where you have more opportunities to network with foreigners. If you are working at a company where there is zero potential to speak in English, and if you really want to, maybe you might want to rethink your decision about staying in this company. Maybe you want to passively look for other company to work for where you do have that kind of environment. So yeah, that's why if let's say you see that all this time you just cannot find the drive within you to actually improve yourself, maybe it's time to actually change the environment. This may seem quite drastic, but maybe necessary. So in short, in order to have the drive and the desire to get better, you have to need it. So the 3 points that I just gave you are just some things that you may think of doing, but if you can think of any other way where you just put yourself in a position where you need English, then that's a lot better. Because remember what we said in the beginning of the video, people who have a lot to lose are the ones that are more likely to take actions. So how do you put yourself in that situation? So I leave you to that. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's video. I will see you again in another video. Until then, you have a good night and good luck. Bye.